Alright, so here's some more section 3-4. Karen is investing her money. She thinks that she should make $20 for every 150 she invests. How much does she expect to make on an investment of $6,750? So just like we were looking at the problem with the triangles and noticing that you could create a proportion based on the lengths of the sides, you could also look at this information and say $20 for every 150 invested, and then in the second case, which would be the second fraction in a sense, you have X dollars compared to an investment of 6,750. So what I'm expecting is 20 over 150 equals X over 6,750. The tutor mode should direct us in a similar way to what I've just described. So we'll do the step by step. They might take it in pieces. Nope, there it is right there. So we can say 20 is to 150 as X is to 6,750. Let's submit that. Okay. And then the same trick as before. You can cross multiply as long as you have a proportion. One fraction equals another. That's the only time this will work. As a little trick that I can say, this is the same as 20 times 6,750 equaling 150 times X. Okay. And then they want the final result. Algebraically, what I can describe is that you'd have to say 20 times 6,750 is what? And then divide by 150 on both sides. That's going to give you your result. So if I go to my tools option, get a calculator, I assume most of you have figured that out, because I know in the introduction I talked about how you could find the calculator, but you can use the Windows calculator and just say 20 times 6,750. It's 135,000. And when I divide both sides by 150, I end up with 900 as a result. Move that out of the way. Click submit. Okay. On to the next problem. Okay. Write the following comparison as a ratio reduced to lowest terms. So if I say nickels, 17 nickels to 45 dimes, what I want to describe this ratio is I want the same increments. So in other words, when I say 17 nickels to 45 dimes, what I'm really wanting to say is 17 nickels to how many nickels? Or it could go the other way, that I could say dimes to dimes. But I'm going to have to change one of these numbers in order to match the labels. So usually what's easier is you take the bigger quantity. A dime is a bigger quantity than a nickel, and you end up increasing this number by the appropriate factor. A dime is worth twice as much as a nickel, so it's a factor of 2 that I'm going to multiply 45 by. So it's a 17 to 90 ratio. So I type in 17 and I type in 90, and then the last step would be, because they want it reduced to lowest terms, do 17 and 90 have any greatest common factor that I could use to reduce them by? 17 is prime, and 17 itself does not divide into 90. So there's no factor other than 1 that divides in, and that's our answer. Okay, here's a proportion. It looks like we can cross multiply. If we do the tutorial, looks like they're just going to give us a hint in terms of what to do, so we can talk through it ourselves. We know that we can multiply x with 18, 162 with 10. So we'll pop our calculator back up. 10 times 162. And then we're going to end up dividing both sides by 18. It'd help if you could see the equation that I'm working out, but try cross multiplying and writing it out. Divide both sides by 18 will be the last step. If you've done it correctly, your answer is 90. If it took 16 hours to drive to your aunt's house, how long would you estimate the drive to the Grand Canyon? The distance to your aunt's house is 592. The distance to the Grand Canyon is 370 miles. So we're assuming we drive at the same rate everywhere we go. That's kind of presumptuous, but assuming that were true, it looks like we can set up the proportion to say the hours it took to drive to a particular location compared to the distance, and then in the other category, that was the aunts, and then in the Grand Canyon category, hours to drive to the Grand Canyon versus miles to drive to the Grand Canyon. That could create the other fraction. In the tutor mode, they do give you the step-by-step. So we could say 16 is to 592, which is talking about hours versus distance to the aunt's house, using x as an unknown, versus 370. Cross multiplication, 16 times 370 equals 592 times x. Okay. And then we'll work it out with the calculator. The 16 times 370 equals 5,920. Divide both sides by 592. We can probably do that in our heads, right? Divide by 592. It's just off by a power of 10. So let me type in 10. Maybe it doesn't want me to type in 10. Thank you. And we're done. Okay. Problems keep repeating, so I think we've covered most of the types, but I'll look and see if we've got any more to think about here. I think we're good. I looked through the rest of the problems. They're just similar types, but just let me know if you want to see anything done out, something you'd like to see an extra example because you didn't quite get it, seeing me do it through one time.